In this crazy world, it's so hard to unwind. So I'm taking time just for me. Gonna find my peace, let my soul be free. In the quiet moments, that's where I'll find a little room to breathe, leave it all behind. Give me room to breathe, I need some time to heal my heart, to clear my mind. Gonna love myself, yeah, I believe in the power of me. Just give me room to breathe.
Great new day to all my self-care friends and family, or should I say elevated awakenings to you all. Welcome back to another Room to Breathe podcast. I am your host, Life Coach 614, and I am so happy that you've made time to be here with us today. Now, before we get into today's episode, do me a quick favor. If you're feeling the vibe, go ahead and show us some love. Tap the screen, like, comment, but most importantly, I need you to share this out with someone who may need a little healing energy. And if this is your first time here or you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that follow button. Subscribe to our channel so that way you're always tapped in when a new episode drops. I also want to personally invite you to check out our digital home at theselfcareclub.org, where you will find everything from affirmative apparel to motivational merch, as well as a ton of free resources to nourish your growth and remind you that you are supported every step of the way. Just know that you don't have to do this alone. We are healing in community, growing one breath, one moment, one day at a time. So today, I encourage you to give yourself permission to pause, to reflect, and to make space for peace, for growth, but most importantly for you. And remember, if anything in today's episode hits home, be sure to drop some green hearts in the chat. That is our community's way of saying I am healing, I am growing, and I am showing up for me. Now, let's get ready to breathe, reflect, and grow together. Elevated Awakenings, Kale, Coach, I see you in the building. Welcome in, everybody. So it is Wednesday, y'all. Y'all know Wednesday be like one of my favorite days because it's what I consider to be my healing day. It's the day that I intentionally pause my week and go fill my cup up with therapy. But last year we had kind of played with this notion of doing something else special in the self-care club on Wednesdays. And so Wednesdays going forward will be our Wow Wednesdays. And that's when I give you guys a new word on Wednesday. And so before we even name the word, let's just sit in this moment, right? Let's just have a very mindful, grounded moment, because I believe that if you are waking up in 2026 feeling different, but you can't quite explain, like how, like if the conversations feel a little heavier than they used to, or if your tolerance, is lower, your discernment is sharper, and your spirit is quicker to say, nah, I'm good, then today's episode is going to be for you. Because I think that what a lot of us are calling burnout, distance, or outgrowing people is actually something that is much deeper and much more natural. So I want to take this grounded moment just to tell you that you are not being cold. You are becoming clear. You're not losing people. You are losing the need to shrink for them. You are not confused. You are just between versions of yourself. And that in-between space, that uncomfortable, itchy, restless, I don't think I can do this anymore feeling, there's a word for that. And once you hear it, you're going to realize that you're not behind or broken or failing. You're just shedding. Okay, you're just shedding. And so today's word on Wednesday is a word that explains why things have felt so demanding. And when I say demanding, I'm talking about it's been demanding honesty and alignment and courage in a way that, just seems different, right? Just a new way. And this word, gives language to those silent goodbyes, right? The quieter boundaries and the grief that comes with growth. So the word is Ecdysis. Ecdysis. It is spelled Ecdysis. Ecdysis. Can you guys add that to the chat? Ecdysis. Let me add the pronunciation. Let me add the pronunciation over here for y'all on YouTube. Again, Ecdysis. Ecdysis. Has anybody ever heard of that word before? There we go. There we go. Go ahead and pin that to the top, sis. Ecdysis. So let's get into it. The word comes from biology, but lives in the body, the spirit, and the healing journey. It means the process of shedding an outer layer in order to grow. Not changing who you are, not becoming someone else, but releasing what can no longer contain who you've become. So if this year has already felt like a year of endings, quiet exits, and internal shifts, then this word isn't here to scare you, right? It's here to validate everything that you've been feeling. So again, you guys, let's jump into this. Take a breath, unclench your jaw, and let's talk about what it really means to shed on purpose, right? So let's talk about what ecdysis really means. Ecdysis is the biological process where an organism sheds its outer layer, be it skin, shell, exoskeleton, and they do so in order to continue to grow. But here's what makes the word so powerful for us. The organism doesn't decide to shed on a whim, right? It doesn't do it just because. It sheds because growth has already happened internally. See, the body changes first. The skin just hasn't caught up yet. Y'all let that sink in. Some of you are blaming yourself for feeling uncomfortable and restless or out of place when the truth is your inner world has already expanded. Your mindset has matured. Your awareness has deepened. Your standards have shifted, but your environment, your relationships, your routines, they're still built for the old version of you. Josh, Jen, welcome in. Elevated awakenings to you. And so that tension that you feel, that tightness in your chest, the irritation that you can't quite name, that's the pressure between who you were and who you already are. And so Ecdysis teaches us something important, which is that you don't have to outgrow things because they're bad. You outgrow them because they serve a previous version of you. That old skin protected you. It helped you to survive. It kept you safe when you didn't have the tools that you have right now. But in this year of new beginnings, survival is no longer the goal. Alignment is. Thank you. And alignment requires space. So if you feel like you can't keep explaining yourself, that you're tired of carrying emotional weight that isn't yours, or you no longer resonate with the dynamics that you once tolerated, that's not rebellion. That is biology and wisdom working together. Welcome in, Kate. And so Ecdysis reminds us that growth is not loud at first. It's internal, right? It's something that starts on the inside. And once the growth happens, the shedding is inevitable. You're not rushing the process. You're just simply responding to it. And the moment that you stop resisting that shed, everything else will start to make sense. But I think it's important that we talk about why Ecdysis feels so uncomfortable, right? You know, because this is the part that nobody prepares us for. Ecdysis doesn't just happen in your mindset. It happens in your nervous system, right? When you're shedding an old version of yourself, your body often reacts before your logic can catch up. And that's why this season feels so emotionally loud when, everything else in your life looks quiet, right? For some, maybe you're more tired than usual, more sensitive, less tolerant. Things that never bothered you before suddenly feel unbearable. And that's not you being dramatic. That's your nervous system saying, I can't regulate inside this environment that no longer matches who we are. See, our bodies learn to survive chaos. Elevated awakenings, butterfly, welcome in. Our bodies learn to survive chaos, right? How to stay alert, how to stay ready, how to stay needed. But now, what our bodies want is peace. Thank you so much. Welcome in, Debbie. And peace feels unfamiliar to a system that was trained in urgency. So ecdysis, right? During ecdysis, your body may tighten when something feels off. It may shut down when conversations feel draining, or you may feel a spike of anxiety when you consider staying somewhere that no longer aligns. But that's not weakness, it's wisdom. Your nervous system is just no longer willing to be the shock absorber for the dysfunction. Let me make this real for us, all right? Let me make it make sense. Let's say you're on a Zoom call. Work, family, community, don't matter. Same people, same dynamic. And suddenly, your chest tightens. Nobody said anything wrong, but something feels wrong. Thank you for the follow. Right? Something just feels wrong. No one said anything. Nothing happened. Right? But suddenly the jokes don't land. The energy feels heavy. You notice how you're expected to smooth things over, explain yourself, or shrink your truth to keep the peace. And so old you would have powered through, muted your discomfort, stayed polite, stayed quiet, right? Very cutesy, very demure. But this version of you feels exhausted, right? And I'm talking about you just feel exhausted just thinking about it. That exhaustion is ecdysis. Your body is rejecting a dynamic that your spirit has already outgrown. So you log off. You don't over-explain. You don't spiral. You just know, I can't keep showing up here like this. And that's not avoidance. That's self-trust being restored. Right? Because during this season, your nervous system is recalibrating. That's what's really going on, right? It's learning safety without over-functioning, calm without control, connection without self-abandonment. And so when you are doing that recalibration, it can feel a little bit messy, because this is the time where you may grieve people who are still alive. You may miss versions of yourself that felt easier to access. You may feel guilt for choosing rest over responsibility. But I want you to hear me when I say discomfort during ecdysis doesn't mean that you're regressing. It means that your body is no longer willing to lie to keep the peace. Right? And isn't that what this is all about? Right? That's growth. So if your emotions feel closer to the surface lately, if your body speaks before your mouth does, if your tolerance for misalignment is shrinking, I want you to know that you're not unstable. You're just shedding layers, right? Your system is making room for a life that doesn't require constant bracing for impact. And that kind of peace always starts with discomfort. And I think that one of the most overlooked parts of ecdysis is that you don't just shed situations, you shed identities, right? And so I believe that 2026 is calling us to expose, how many of us have been living from versions of ourselves that were built out of necessity, not truth, right? Being the strong one, the dependable one, the one who keeps the peace, the one who never needs help. Those identities weren't lies. They were just survival roles. But survival roles have an expiration date. And when that date passes, continuing to live inside of them starts to feel like betrayal to yourself. That's why this season feels so disorienting, right? Because you're not just asking, what do I want? You're asking, who am I without the role that once defined me? See, there's a grief of outgrowing who you had to be, right? Let's just be honest, right? There's this grief for the version of you who was praised for being low maintenance. Grief for the identity that made you feel needed. Grief for the person who kept everything together at the cost of their own peace. And so this year, I'm encouraging you to look at it from just a different perspective. Thank you. Right? In 2026, a lot of people are discovering that the identity they were most celebrated for was the one that exhausted them the most. And I can definitely attest to that, you guys. Being the strong friend has drained the life out of me. 10 out of 10, I don't recommend. And so choosing to shed that identity can feel a bit scary. Because you're like, well, if I'm not the strong friend, who am I? Because I don't want to be the weak one. I don't want to be the needy one. I got to figure out what else I want to identify as, but this ain't it. Yeah. And so it can feel a bit scary because when you stop performing who you were, you don't immediately know who you're becoming. And that in between space is ecdysis, right? And so if we were to look at how this shows up in real life right now, it's like you no longer introduce yourself the same way, right? Titles feel less impressive. Achievements don't hit the same. You care more about how your life feels over how it looks. So you're not chasing visibility, you're chasing integrity, right? You're asking yourself, does this version of me feel honest? Does my yes cost me my peace? Or does this align with my values right now? And some people won't recognize you anymore, not because you've changed for the worse, but because you stopped over explaining your evolution. Yeah, honesty is key. And take that a step further, it is the being honest with yourself. Because I think a lot of us are showing up honestly to other people while lying to ourselves. So being honest with yourself. And so, ecdysis is about being brave enough to be undefined for a while, right? Who are you? Well, I'm still figuring that out. I'm still becoming, right? I don't have all the language yet. I'm allowed to evolve without announcing it. I don't have to sing it from the highest mountaintop. I get to just be. Well, who are you? I'm me. I'm that girl, been that girl, right? But you don't owe anyone a fully formed version of your future self. You just owe yourself the honesty, right? You owe yourself the honesty in the present, in this moment. And so every time you shed an outdated identity, you make room for a more regulated, rooted, and aligned version of yourself to emerge. Not louder, not harder, just true you. And so if it's a new year, true me, then that means I know that I have to shed some things. I have to be willing to let some things go. Sip your water. Now, if you feel like you're losing pieces of yourself, I just want you to pause and ask, is this really a loss or is this a release? Understand that identity shifts aren't crises. They're confirmations. You're not losing yourself. You're meeting yourself without armor. And that takes courage that most people never choose. And I think that one of the hardest parts of ecdysis is, well, I can tell you it isn't shedding habits or routines. It's shedding relationships. Not because something blew up, not because there was some sort of big betrayal, but because the connection no longer matches who you're becoming. And I think that can feel confusing, right? Especially when the relationship wasn't bad, right? I think that this is a truth that most people avoid. You don't have to justify distance. You don't need a dramatic ending to honor a quiet ending. Sometimes the relationship simply belonged to a version of you that no longer exists. And so as you grow, understand that your needs change. Your boundaries sharpen. Your capacity for emotional labor decreases. And suddenly, dynamics that once felt normal start feeling heavy. You notice that you're always the one adjusting. You leave interactions feeling drained, not nourished. You keep editing yourself to keep the peace. You feel guilty for needing space. That's not you being ungrateful. That's you becoming more honest with yourself. Ecdysis doesn't ask you to villainize people. It asks you to tell the truth about what fits in your life. And so you have to become okay with the release without blame. Because not everybody can walk with you into your next season. And that doesn't mean they failed you or you failed them. It just means they love you at the capacity that matched who you were then. And now that your capacity has changed, you can honor what was real without forcing it to remain current. There's this maturity that shows up, not in confrontation, but in discernment. And I think that one of the most healing realizations in this stage is that you don't owe everyone access to the version of you that's healing. You don't owe everyone access to the version of you that's healing. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Sometimes distance is the boundary. Silence is the protection. Change is the communication. And so, you can love people deeply and still choose not to keep the same level of closeness. And Ecdysis teaches us that proximity is not proof of loyalty. And distance is not always a sign of rejection. Sometimes it's just preservation. So if you find yourself grieving people who are still alive, if you miss the connection but not the dynamic, if you feel sad but relieved at the same time, that's not confusion. That's clarity arriving slowly. And so I tell you again, you are not cold. Hey, Tisha. You are not cold. You are not heartless. You are just no longer willing to abandon yourself to maintain familiarity, right? I just don't need it anymore. And that's growth. Quiet, grounded, and honest. There's also this emotional labor, right? I think that it is one of the hardest layers to shed because for a long time, that emotional labor was praised, right? You were called the strong one for carrying everything. You were known as reliable for holding space, mature for staying quiet, loving for overextending yourself. But what nobody told you was this. Being emotionally available to everyone else can quietly disconnect you from yourself. Y'all know that was a whole word right there. Let me repeat myself. Being emotionally available to everyone else can quietly disconnect you from yourself. And so ecdysis is the moment that you realize I can't keep managing other people's emotions at the expense of my own nervous system. And that realization doesn't come gently, right? There's a period where emotional labor becomes self-abandonment. At some point, emotional labor stops being generosity and starts becoming survival. Right? You start to notice patterns like anticipating reactions before they happen, soothing discomfort that isn't yours to fix, over explaining your boundaries so you won't feel bad, or staying silent to avoid conflict even when it costs you. That version of you learned how to keep the peace, but peace that required self-erasure is not peace at all. There's a word for that too, and it's called compliance. And so ecdysis is our body's way of saying we don't need to perform safety anymore. Right? And there is a guilt that comes with letting go. Right? This is another part that people don't talk about enough. When you stop carrying emotional labor, right? Because guilt is what shows up first. You feel selfish for resting, mean for saying no, distant for choosing silence, cold for not explaining yourself, and whatever other label society wants to throw at you, right? But guilt doesn't always mean that you're doing something wrong. Thank you for the follow. Guilt doesn't always mean that you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it means that you're doing something new. Your nervous system is just adjusting to a life where you don't have to earn rest by being exhausted first. And so shedding this layer doesn't mean that you stopped caring. It just means that you stopped over functioning. It looks like letting adults manage their own feelings, right? Saying less, not more. Pausing instead of fixing. Choosing your response instead of reacting. You begin to realize that love doesn't require constant emotional availability. That connection doesn't require self-sacrifice. And healing doesn't demand that you carry everyone else while you're breaking. Elevated Awakenings, Trey's mom, welcome in. And so today I just want to tell you that there is relief on the other side. Once this layer starts to shed, something beautiful happens. You breathe deeper. You feel lighter. You stop bracing for other people's moods. Thank you, Carlene. You experience peace without explanation. And the people who are meant to walk with this version of you, They won't require exhaustion as proof of love. They'll meet you where you are, regulated, honest, and whole, right? They'll appreciate this you, this true you in the new year, right? So if you're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix, if your silence feels safer than your explanations, if you're craving peace more than approval, that is ecdysis. You're not becoming less loving. You're becoming more self-respecting. And that kind of healing always changes how you show up. And so now that we put a name on it, now that we understand ecdysis a little bit more, I want to talk about how to support yourself while you're shedding. Right? I think that this is something that nature understands, but we often forget. When shedding happens, the body doesn't speed up, it slows down. Right? Animals going through ecdysis instinctively withdraw. They reduce exposure. They protect what's tender. And yet, as humans, we try to push through this season like nothing's happening, expecting ourselves to still perform, produce, and please while our inner world is under renovation. That's why this season feels so heavy. Ecdysis is not a season for us to force. It's a season of for us to be gentle, right? For gentleness with structure. So we have to begin to understand that slowing down doesn't mean falling behind. Slowing down doesn't mean failing. If you feel less motivated, less talkative, less available than usual, I encourage you to pause before judging yourself, because it's not laziness. It's recalibration. Your system is integrating new boundaries, new awareness, new standards. And that integration requires a lot of energy. So supporting yourself in this season may look like canceling plans without guilt, creating more space between conversations, choosing solitude without isolating, resting without needing a reason. You're not retreating from life. You're just tending to yourself. And it is our job to protect what's tender. Because after that shed, that new layer is sensitive. That means you don't owe everybody access to you right now. Hey, girl. Thank you so much. So again, as you're going through this shift, right? As you are experiencing ecdysis, that layer that you're getting rid of is an exposed layer that is soft and gentle, right? It deserves gentleness. And so again, it means that you don't owe everyone access to you right now. She dance, welcome in. This is your season to be selective with who you share with. Great new day. Yes, I cannot wait. I'm so excited. So again, be selective with who you share you with, because you ain't for everybody. Okay. We not for the streets in 2026, y'all. I want you to notice how your body responds to people and spaces, right? Normalize saying, I'll get back to you, instead of forcing answers. This is our year to honor our intention without feeling the need to explain it. India, welcome back. You are learning to trust your inner cues again. And trust grows in the quiet, right? And understand that support doesn't have to be complicated, right? Sometimes it's as simple as taking a deep breath before responding, putting your feet on the floor and your bare feet on the floor and feeling grounded, drinking water slowly, intentionally, and allowing the silence without filling it. These small acts signal safety to your body, and a regulated body makes clearer decisions. And so this is our opportunity to redefine self-care, right? It's not the performative self-care, right? The aesthetically pleasing, trending self-care. This is about protective self-care. It's about choosing rest over reaction, presence over pressure, integrity over urgency. You don't need to get through this season. You just need to be with yourself in it. And just let that be enough, right? If all you do right now is listen to your body and honor its limits, that's enough. You're not wasting time. You're not losing momentum. You're building a foundation that doesn't require you to break yourself to belong. And Ecdysis teaches us this, right? It teaches us that what's forming beneath the surface matters more than what's visible right now. Who I am shifting and evolving into beneath the surface, what you can't see, is bigger and better than the me that you see. And when that shedding completes, you emerge steadier, right? Stronger, not rushed, not forced. You emerge in that life that you have put in the work for, right? The life that you desire, not what society desires for you. No fear, no doubt. Elevated awakenings, bro. Welcome in. And so another part that I think that people don't tell you about Ecdysis is that the shedding isn't the end. I bet this whole time you thought the shedding was the whole moral of the story, but it's just the threshold. Because once that old layer comes off, you don't go back to life the same way. And it's not because you're better than who you were. It's because you're more aware than you once were. And awareness changes everything. After the shed, there's relief, right? But there's also responsibility. You can't unknow what you know. And so once you've recognized that misalignment, you can't pretend it isn't there anymore. You can't unknow it. You know, how your body responds to certain spaces, what it cost you to stay quiet, which relationships require you to shrink, where you've been betraying yourself for comfort. I know better. So I have no choice but to do better, to be better. And that's not a burden. That's discernment. This is the moment where healing asks you, what will you do with all that you've learned? This is the moment that we have to start living with intention instead of habit. Because after Ecdysis, life becomes more intentional. You stop moving on autopilot, right? You stop just being one of the walking dead, requiring, old muscle movement to guide you through the day. You pause before agreeing. You notice before committing. And it's not because you're afraid. It's because you respect yourself more now than you used to. You begin choosing conversations that feel mutual. Thank you for the heart me. Welcome in, bro. I see you, Chef Chris. You seek out commitments that don't exhaust you. Environments that support regulation, not survival. You don't chase peace anymore. You just protect it. And so this new layer, after we've shed out the old, this new layer has a tender strength to it. Right? That new skin is sensitive. But again, let's not confuse sensitivity with fragility. Sensitivity is awareness. It's presence. It's the ability to feel without becoming overwhelmed. You might respond differently now, right? You may notice that you're quieter, slower, more deliberate. But that's not weakness. That's integration, right? Because you've learned that power doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it simply walks away. Mic drop. And after the shed, there may still be moments of doubt, moments where the old version of you tries to resurface out of habit. That's normal, right? But now you have a choice. You can choose alignment over approval. You can choose rest over reaction. You can choose truth over comfort. And every single time that you choose yourself, you reinforce the new layer forming. So if you're standing at the edge of something new right now, uncertain but clearer than you've ever been, I encourage you to trust that feeling. You didn't shed to become someone else. You shed to be more fully yourself. And what comes next doesn't require perfection, only presence. And it's yours. So if this word found you today, it wasn't by accident. Because ecdysis doesn't show up when you're comfortable. It shows up when your spirit is done negotiating with versions of your life that no longer fit. If you've been feeling quieter lately, if you've been choosing distance without drama, if you've been honoring your body instead of overriding it, you're not pulling away from life. You're pulling closer to yourself. And there's nothing wrong with you for changing. There is nothing wrong with you for needing new or more space. There's nothing wrong with you for releasing what once felt safe. I think that what you are doing right now is brave because you're allowing yourself to evolve without permission. You're trusting your inner knowing over outside validation. You're choosing peace without needing to explain why. And that kind of healing is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It simply shows up in how you breathe, how you choose, and how you protect your energy. So as you move through the rest of this week, don't rush the process. Don't force clarity. Don't pressure yourself to have it all figured out. Let the shedding finish. Honor the layers that carried you this far and thank them for their service. And then release them with compassion. What's forming underneath doesn't need to be hardened yet. It just needs to be honored. And when you step forward, softer, clearer, more aligned, you'll realize that you didn't lose yourself in this season. You just finally came home. So that's what I have for y'all today, y'all. Our wow word on Wednesday, ecdysis. I hope that it resonates with you. Share the word, tell a friend. And before we part ways, let me go ahead and leave you guys with a little love and light. as always, I am here to encourage you to keep breathing through the highs, the lows, and every moment in between. I want you to keep choosing peace, even if it feels out of reach. And know that here at the Self Care Club, you will always be seen, always valued, and always supported. So don't be afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life. And I am praying that your day is not just amazing, but aligned, intentional, and yes, on purpose, filled with purpose. This has been another Room to Breathe podcast, and I cannot wait to connect with you all again soon. Thank you.